Wow. Hey, everybody. Sorry. Welcome back.
It wouldn't be
Welcome-
normal, Pasta, if you didn't do something wrong.
Well, I'm trying to share the link. Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everybody. Pasta Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Johnny Sue is hanging out, and Oz with the overalls, fam. Friday style on the ones and twos. Guys, on YouTube right now, We're getting like ridiculous amounts of suppression right here. Please like, share, get it out there. Same thing with Rokfin, Rokfin. They're really trying to stick it to us right now. We saw this right before we went off to Honduras. They pulled feeds, Twitter feed for no reason. So let's just like and share. Let's do it. Let's get it out there. A lot of people have been telling us they're not getting the bells. They're not getting the warning that we were going live. Somebody was like, "Oh, you guys are live? How much did I miss? What did I miss?" So let's like and share. Let's put it up on Twitter. Let's put it up on Facebook. Let's put it up everywhere we can share it. Let's get the news out there because we have a great show, fam. Because middle of the night last night, while we were just getting in and whatnot, there was a hearing going on in England, fam. You want to jump right into it? First of all, Trey Wright was one of the first in the door. Says, "Love you all. Hashtag free Assange now, you damn bastards."
Yeah, I mean, today's a really sad day, and I'm sharing things, and I shared one twice on accident. Sorry.
It's okay. Share it twice, everybody. We need to share it. We need to get in the algorithm right now. This is like our normal time. We're like, it's 1 o'clock right now. We usually have a lot more people hanging out and watching. So please do us a favor and share, like, get it out there. It's the news, fam.
Yeah. So the United States won their appeal to extradite Julian Assange. The verdict came at 10:15 or so a.m. UK time, which was like 5 a.m. Eastern time and 2:30ish around our time. And we came home late from traveling all day, and so we were gonna stay up, and I just like passed out, and I woke up at 4, and I was like, holy shit, this sucks. And I mean, I know Misty and Steve and Glory, all of them had a show last night. Misty was really upset. I mean, it's really sucks. This is more than just one guy, and I say that all the time because a lot of these detractors constantly say it's just one white guy. One white guy that exposed war crimes committed against people in the Middle East and by the United States and their allies, and he is paying the price for it. He's a publisher, a journalist. He simply did what is asked of journalists. I mean, what you do is you expose corruption. That's what you're supposed to do.
The fourth estate.
That's what it was supposed to be.
Right.
But now that doesn't exist. I mean, most of the media is propagandized, right? And so, and we're going to have some people on as soon as we can to talk more about this whole thing. But a
free and open press is supposed to keep the government intact. It's supposed to be the guard dog, right? Watch the government. What are they doing? Report on it. Let the people know. But we don't have that, like Pam said. Now we just have a paid propagandist media out there that's just pro-war, pro-corporation, sponsored by those guys. You know who sponsors everybody over there. And that's what we have nowadays. So it really is a shame because Julian Assange, now there is nobody out there as big as Julian Assange who pulled back the curtains on the American empire and what they do. So when they say Julian's just one white guy, well, this one white guy exposed how racist, how fascistic, how authoritarian the United States empire is, especially overseas. Collateral Murder was one of the most famous films out there. How they can just mow down journalists in Iraq without even having a concern or a pulse, it seems like. They didn't even care. And that happens almost every day out there. So that's what he exposed. And without Julian, we wouldn't know how awful, we wouldn't have the proof on how awful the American empire is, and how bad the DNC was, and how they were cheating Bernie. All this information, all he did was present us the truth. So he is not just one white guy. He is the one white guy that exposed the empire, unlike nobody.
Yeah, unlike anybody else. And so let's just start real quick. Kit Clarenberg said, breaking, the U.S. government has won its appeal in Julian Assange's extradition case. This is an absolute travesty, and it behooves anyone and everyone who cares or claims to care about him to do everything they can to fight this with every ounce of energy they can muster. And also from WikiLeaks to this morning, breaking, high court decision, grave miscarriage of justice as Julian Assange's fiance, as a UK court overturns an earlier decision blocking the extradition of Julian Assange to the United States. So guys, just to refresh everybody's memory, was it this year, Judge Vanessa Bracer, ruled that the extradition was against the extradition because of how terrible the U.S. prison system was. And this time, of course, they were able to say that they believe the United States would hold its part to make it not so terrible, essentially. And we're going to go over the specifics of what they used, which is the
not so terrible. We're not going to torture them that bad.
They're trusting the United States' word, essentially, which is why the hell would you trust anything the United States? The country that tried to kill him, that we know now, we knew, but we confirmed that the CIA had a whole plot to kill him. So how are you sending him to the country where they were plotting to kill him? It just defies all logic. And
I just can't wait to hear people say, well, the United States has agreed not to torture him that much, or something of that nature. They're going to tie him down, fam, and tickle his feet with a feather.
Yeah, that's essentially what they're saying. Okay, so from RT, the UK High Court has granted the US government's appeal over the refusal to extradite WikiLeaks co-founder Julian Assange, opening the door for his eventual trial on American soil on espionage charges. By the way, we won't see that trial at all. In January, a district court denied the U.S. extradition request, citing the vulnerable mental state of the publisher and the possibility that he would take his own life if subjected to the brutal prison conditions in the U.S. The High Court's ruling is not final. It can be appealed, and it's already being appealed. They're appealing it as soon as possible. Assange's fiancée, Stella Moris, called the decision a grave miscarriage of justice, and it's been remitted to the Westminster Magistrates Court in the UK. And this is what she said. The next one, it's shameful in every, this is what the editor-in-chief of WikiLeaks told RT, it's shameful in every respect that the UK wants to extradite Julian Assange to the US, the nation where top officials had purported plans to snatch or even assassinate him.
Yep.
We are dealing with a nation where individuals on the top level at the CIA and the White House contemplated kidnapping or killing Julian Assange. Kristen Hobson said, referring to a Yahoo News report detailing the CIA's hunt after Assange under then director Mike Pompeo. So this is nothing new. And this is more of what he said. He said the High Court in London just came to a decision on UN Human Rights Day. By the way, yes, it's International Human Rights Day, and it's the last day of the Biden's Democracy Summit, which is hilarious to me. And we're going to mention that too, that it is okay to extradite an individual to a country which contemplated killing that individual. That is shameful in every respect. And it is absolutely shameful, fam.
Yeah.
And so anything you want to say?
No, I mean, it is a big joke. We know what's going on. Let's just continue to go along with this. I mean, I didn't think they would get this done. I thought the objective of the United States would be to make sure that Julian would just rot in the British prison and die one day. You know what I'm saying? But, they got it done. They got him over here and they wanted to get this done. And,
I feel like I've turned into a pessimist or more. It's just, I felt like this is what they were going to do. Because they're basically killing him slowly. This is a slow death because he's not okay. Yeah. He's, I think one of all of the journalists that were able to attend the virtual court described him as, not looking good, like looking like he's aged, like he's not, like
the physical part and the mental part
and then of course the mental part that has been proven with other doctors. So they're killing him slowly because now there's going to be an appeal and it's going to take forever. This is not going to end here.
I heard that he's okay because he went and asked for an extra orange juice in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
So they deemed him okay. They literally said that, by the way. No, he's all right. He went and asked for an extra orange juice. He's all right.
So there is video outside of the court. Our friend Ahmed Cabello was out there in London reporting, and so we're going to show some footage from what he said.
To appeal to the Supreme Court on this decision. We'll give you 100%.
Oz, that's good. Oz.
You got
Yeah.
it.
So that was them marching in the streets. Did you want to go right to Ahmed?
Yeah.
We'll go to the next clip with Ahmed Cabello.
Yeah, he's going to explain pretty much what happened.
So the persecution of Julian Assange continues. I'm outside the Royal Courts of Justice, where a Court of Appeal has overturned the judgment made by the court in January here in the UK, meaning that Julian Assange can be extradited to the United States, where he might face up to 175 years in prison. Now, this was always on the cards because of the worrying court judgment that happened in January. Many people celebrated it as some sort of victory. It was not. The judge did not defend freedom of press, did not defend the right of Julian Assange to publish material that is overwhelmingly within the public interest. She didn't defend those arguments. She didn't defend the fact that the United States government had tried to kidnap and even assassinate Julian Assange. All that was dismissed. She decided not to extradite Julian Assange because of mental health reasons and because of risk to suicide, which was a very troubling precedent for freedom of press going forward, and it always laid the ground for a decision to be overturned, like it has been today by the Courts of Appeal. Now, what's worrying is it again demonstrates that in the United Kingdom and the United States, we have a one-party state system with two wings: the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, the Labour Party, and the Conservative Party. When Joe Biden was the vice president, he said that Julian Assange was a high-tech terrorist. Sarah Palin, who's on the opposite side of the ideological spectrum, said that he needed to be hunted down like the Taliban. Then Donald Trump persecuted Julian Assange and tried to extradite him, and now Joe Biden, as President of the United States, has continued that persecution. The Labour Party has said nothing to defend Julian Assange. The leader of the Labour Party, that is, Boris Johnson, supports the extradition of Julian Assange, and the only figures within the Labour movement, Jeremy Corbyn, Richard Bergen, have either been marginalised or kicked out of the Labour Party. So it's a very sad state of affairs, and it shows that the UK and the US are going to continue this disastrous, aggressive foreign policy in the Middle East, and they don't want the British and American public to know about their crimes and about the civilian casualties that they leave in their wake.
Yeah.
Right. So it's important to know what he said is extremely important, actually. When this happened in January, we were there in front of the Department of Injustice. You know, a lot of people were cautious in their joy because
in Washington, yeah,
in DC, and because Judge Vanessa, Brewster actually did not do it based on defending that he did nothing wrong, that he was just a journalist publishing. She did it based on, you know, his mental state and the U.S.
suicide risk
system. Yeah. And so then that allowed for the appeal to go through, saying that they were justified. And so that's important to point out also that you know what he said, that it doesn't matter. You know, during the Obama years, they were they persecuted more journalists and whistleblowers than anybody else. And then Donald Trump did the same thing, and now Joe Biden. Why does that happen? Because these aren't really the people in charge. The people in charge are the national security state apparatus, including the State Department. So that's why this happens.
Hillary Clinton said that she wanted a drone. Can't we drone him, is what she said. People like Bob Beckel were on Fox News saying we need to whack this guy. The Democrats were embarrassed by what Julian produced, right? You know, a lot of people turned it into he's working for Donald Trump, he's working for the Russians, but that's just not the case. He's even exposed Vladimir Putin before WikiLeaks with his money offshores and stuff. One thing I do want to point out, fam, because when you had the video up when they were marching, there was a sign that said something about Thorbison. The thing that's really crazy, since the last decision that Judge Brewster made in January, and now the top witness that the FBI had actually, according to Julian Assange's father, turned Turnbull. So he recanted his whole statement. This was their number one witness. So things statistically and on paper actually should have gotten better for Julian Assange.
Yep.
That's why I think a lot of people had some high hopes coming in today. It's like, all right, well, their case is falling apart. Maybe this is going to swing the other way. But that is just not the case.
Well, and the judge, one of the judges in that was in charge of this case with Julian, was caught having lunch with CIA members. So, I mean, they're partial to the State Department. They're friends with the State Department. They're going to do what they want. That's why this isn't a fair trial.
Yeah.
This is a kangaroo trial.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so we have something from the WikiLeaks editor. Let's hear what he said on RT, just like a minute of it. I'll tell you when.
Reaction to all of this now with the WikiLeaks editor-in-chief, Christian Haraffenson, and we appreciate you coming on at such short notice. What's your reaction then to this court's decision this afternoon?
Well, it's actually unbelievable and so ironic that this decision should be handed down on the United Nations Human Rights Day. This is unbelievable that the appeal court should overturn the magistrate court decision, and on the basis that the United States had given assurances that they would treat Julian fairly and he would get treatment and be housed in an adequate jail and could even serve his sentence if he gets one in Australia. All of these so-called assurances have been investigated by human rights organizations such as Amnesty International and found that those assurances are not worth the paper they're written on. They are simply not reliable. But this is the only reason why the High Court decided to send this back and overturn the decision of the Magistrate Court. This is, of course, will lead to an appeal by Julian now, if the Magistrate Court, which she will undoubtedly do, changes her ruling and sends the case to the Secretary of State for extradition. But this is not over, but it is a dark day for journalism, that this is still ongoing after all these years, that Julian Assange is still in Belmarsh prison, having been on remand for 2 years and 3 months, which is in itself a human rights violation.
When it goes back to the lower courts, what evidence...
Yep.
Okay, guys. So we just wanted to show that, and I mean, this is ridiculous. It's going to go straight to the basically the U.S. State Department. Basically, that's. I mean, this is. Yeah. So a lot of people were like, yeah, but this is the UK deciding. No. This is the UK doing the work for the U.S. This is the UK doing the bidding of the United States. Yeah. This is the United States having international jurisdiction over the free press, literally making an example out of Julian Assange. That's what people need to understand. They're being the bully that is driving the horse. Now, of course, they have this close relationship, right, with the UK. So that's why this is no surprise.
When you just talk about United States, UK, France, Israel,
the
they're all acting together. Who's the fifth?
The Five Eyes.
Yeah, the Five Eyes. I mean, they're all. Australia is now the fifth eye because they've joined apart. That very. And a very poor decision in my case, but that's something else. Let's talk about whistleblower Craig Murray.
Yeah, who was there? As well. He was there in solidarity, and he had a few words to say. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Well, today's judgment was a partial victory, in that the judge found that on the medical evidence and on the evidence of conditions in American jails, the magistrate had made the correct decision in refusing to extradite Julian Assange. However, they said, based purely on diplomatic assurances from the United States and a diplomatic note, that they accepted the word of the United States government as to the conditions in which Julian would be held. And they said that this is because they were solemn assurances from a state. Well, of course, these are solemn assurances from the state whose war crimes and murder of civilians were exposed by Julian Assange. You cannot accept these kinds of assurances from the government of the United States. And the government of the United States has broken precisely these kind of assurances in other legal cases for which there are a series of judgments at the European Court of Human Rights which were ignored.
Okay, well, that's Craig Murray, a former British diplomat.
All Alrighty, and you know, I also wanted to point out a couple things that I thought I put in there, but I wanted to really say them. The High Court used the U.S. lawyers as assurances, right, that the so-called special administrative measures, or the SAMs, would not be applied to Assange when in U.S. custody, because that's essentially what I'm saying. They're taking the U.S. word on that, and they had, of course, justified the earlier refusal to extradite him because he could be subjected to the SAMs. And so the U.S. team had argued during the appeal hearings that if the American side knew that it was an issue, they would have offered assurances to the contrary during the entire process. So, you know, these are the things that the SAMs are basically the restrictions that the U.S. can order to inmates deemed to be dangerous. So basically, he would be in a maximum high security prison where he wouldn't be allowed to really have contact with people. One of the inmates described it as, you know, you have an hour a day of being outside, and like sometimes it's in the middle of the night. They get to decide when you're out. So you don't get to choose. And if you deny it, you're not allowed out until the next day. So it is extremely torturous, the conditions that they were saying. It's isolation. And so, I mean, you know, he has already been in prison in some form or another since 2010. So you can see how long that's been, 11 years of this.
Yeah,
so.
of hiding, being incarcerated or subjected to just small quarters and whatnot. And, you know, I just want to piggyback to the thing that was said. It's a sad day for journalism. This means anybody's a target right now. They can do whatever they want to anybody because there's no outcry for this. There's no people just getting really mad and saying enough is enough. You know what I'm saying? Too many people are just letting this gloss right through. They're distracted with all the bullshit that's put in front of them. But this is really, really bad now because now they're pretty much saying that if anybody exposes the United States empire, the imperialist empire, that we'll throw you away and we'll put you in jail and we'll throw away the key, fam, and we'll lock you up forever. So keep your mouth shut. This pretty much hinders real journalism because what could they do now? If anybody reports on anything, you know what I'm saying? We get a tip or something. That was normally, we were allowed to do this. This is what the press was allowed to do. And this guy just published stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a very, very sad day, guys. So.
And so what's even more heartbreaking is his partner, his fiance, Stella Moris. She gave some a really nice, touching, and very just it's just like a pivotal speech. I mean, it's just so important, the words that she says. So it's 2 videos. We're gonna start with the first part, and then the second part starts at 44 minutes.
Today, it's been almost a year since I stood outside court with our victory of the blocking of the extradition. For the past year and the past 2 years and a half, Julian has remained in Belmarsh prison, and in fact, he has been detained since the 7th of December 2010 in one form or another, 11 years. For how long can this go on? Today is International Human Rights Day. What a shame, how cynical. To have this decision on this day, to have one of the foremost publisher, journalist of the past 50 years in a UK prison, accused of publishing the truth about war crimes, about CIA kill teams. And in fact, every time we have a hearing, we know more about the abusive nature, the criminal nature of this case. Julian exposed the crimes of CIA torturers, of CIA killers, and now we know that those CIA killers were planning to kill him too. How can these courts approve an extradition request under these conditions? How can they accept an extradition to the country that plotted to kill Julian, that plotted to kill a publisher because of what he published? This goes to the fundamentals of press freedom and of democracy. We will fight. Every generation has an epic fight to fight, and this is ours because Julian represents the fundamentals of what it means to live in a free society, of what it means to have press freedom, of what it means for journalists to do their jobs without being afraid of spending the rest of their lives in prison. The UK imprisons journalists. They're imprisoning Julian on behalf of a foreign power which is taking an abusive, vindictive prosecution against a journalist, and this is what it's about.
Exactly. This is just, we're gonna show you what happens if you actually try to take on, you know, the U.S. National security state. That if you're a real journalist, this can happen to you. You don't have to worry about it if you're a propagandist, but if you're a real journalist, because CNN was already like saying this isn't the, you know, the Pandora Papers. This is a closed case. This is very obvious because, you know, the Pandora Papers were selective. You know, releases. They're trying to emulate WikiLeaks, and they will never be able to emulate that because WikiLeaks was the truth.
Yeah, they would try to manufacture consent against Putin for that whole situation. You know, that's why I have idiots like Vosh saying stupid shit nowadays and stuff like that. But it's more than just journalists doing its job. It's what really keeps humanity in place, right? These people that we're talking about, the imperialists out there, they have nuclear weapons. They have many things that can destroy this planet over and over and over again. And if they can manufacture consent and control the narrative, they can force us into another war. You know, they can force us into invading another country, having another regime change. They can force us into jailing and silencing people that they disagree with. And the sad thing about it is that we have so many cheerleaders on the American left that are going along with this. We're saying, well, he shouldn't have done this stuff. Look what Julian did. You know what I'm saying?
Or he's a rapist.
Computer crimes. He's a rapist, whatnot. He's just one white dude. It's just sad right now because now the empire can do what they want. They can create any narrative. And if you speak out against it, if you just simply try to show the American people or the world the truth, you will now get thrown in jail and they will throw away the key and they will mentally torture you until you die. So today, not only did freedom of press take a beating, but freedom of speech took a real big beating today. That's something that Julian Fathers always talked about. This is about the First Amendment. This is not just about my son.
And so just wrapping up here, this section, Julian Assange's lawyers are going to, the defense team are going to appeal. This is from Bernberg Pierce. They said the decision of the High Court has rejected 3 grounds of appeal argued by the U.S. It upholds the judgment of District Judge Vanessa Barrister as correct. On the basis of all that she heard, it would be oppressive to extradite Mr. Assange to the U.S. given his mental health and the harsh conditions he would face in U.S. prison. The High Court allowed part of the U.S. appeal, which provides assurances which were given after the evidential hearing by the district judge and only after the Judge Barrister's judgment. On behalf of Mr. Assange, his lawyers will be seeking permission to appeal this decision to the Supreme Court. The application to do so has to be made in writing within 14 days. Any such appeal to the Supreme Court would relate to the question of the assurances. Appeals on other important questions, including questions of free speech and on the political motivation of the U.S. extradition request, have yet to be considered by an appeal court. So they can't appeal it on that basis. They can only appeal it on the assurances, meaning that perhaps the U.S., we know, but that the argument would be that the U.S. is not trustworthy of these assurances that they're making because they tried to freaking kill him. Yeah. So how could you believe that what they're saying when they try to secretly kill him? Yeah. Like that's, I mean, any lawyer, that's a winning case. And if it were any other situation, there was also a situation that, that reneged because the United States said that they have never, violated any sort of international law or humanitarian law, which is false because there's a case in Spain and Richard Medhurst wrote about it in a really long article where you could just read about how that case could be used potentially in defense of Julian Assange because this gentleman they actually did violate his rights. And so basically they can use that defense. But I mean, it's any sort of defense is going to be, I don't, honestly, a lot of Assange activists and supporters are pretty much at the point where they're like, we're not going to get him out via a clown show of a judicial system that there is not. There's not one in the UK. There's not one in the United States. Yeah. So what we're saying is we're going to have to get him out in other ways. And so people are starting to be like, okay, Now what do we do? Because if you push people to this brim where the electoral system doesn't work, the judicial system isn't working, we're in the same situation here. How do you get change? The only way to get change is through direct action. And so I think that's where a lot of people are going.
Well, the thing that's really a shame too is that we have to argue, the defense is going to have to argue based upon the merits of the treatment of the United States, whatnot. We're not even going to, they're not going to be able to even argue based upon the merits of what did Julian really do that was legal. You know what I'm saying? Now the argument, the debate is taken to a different level here, a different area. It's like, okay, now we have to talk about the treatment. So the argument is not even, or the debate is not even where it needs to be, because at the end of the day, they lost their best witness. He, you know, they still really, he's an Australian citizen. So why are they even jailing him in the first place? Now we go to a different area, and that's why we get away from what actually Julian did. And that's a shame too as well.
And just to reiterate the fact that, you know, here's Joe Biden saying renewing democracy is a defining challenge of our time. And he said this during his democracy summit. And I said on the second day of this FAR summit, the U.S. wanted to appeal to extradite Julian Assange, once again showing the world that democracy is but a slogan to them as they continue to commit war crimes in jail or censor the journalists exposing them. And you guys can see that Joe Biden gathered over 100 world leaders at a summit Thursday, made a plea to bolster democracies around the world, calling safeguarding rights and freedoms in the face of rising authoritarianism is the defining challenge of this era. And he talked about, he invited, of course, Juan Guaido, by the way.
Yeah.
He said, democracy doesn't happen by accident. We have to renew it with each generation. He did not point fingers at China and Russia, but he failed to invite the leaders of these nations, so they weren't there at all.
Yeah.
And they also used this summit to announce sanctions against officials in Iran, Syria, and Uganda, accusing them of oppressing their populations and being tied to corruption and criminal gangs in Kosovo and Central America. And of course, what I just said on the next slide, Oz, is that surreal. Biden invites Venezuelan failed coup leader Juan Guaido to the U.S. Summit for Democracy. Guys, I mean, the jokes write themselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Did we send the link?
Okay. Great.
Guys,
try to get her on.
Cool. Oz, if you connected with our guest right now, we have a guest. It's really lucky that we booked this guest on this day. With everything that just happened over the last 2 days, I think it's awesome. By the way, Kristen and I left a great a little love on the Rokfin. Thank you very much for the Super 8 contribution. It's always appreciated on the couch. Guys, if you're on YouTube, share the link, get it out there. We have a great guest coming on. Oz, are you able to connect with her?
Oh, she's coming in? Okay. Okay.
All right, she's coming in right now. So
there's, I don't know if can we play this video before?
Which video?
Oh, okay. Dark day for democracy. And by the way, the United States, of course, is continuing sanctions on Nicaragua.
Yeah. The
just wait, and we're going to be talking about that. You know, the importance of the relationship that's budding between Nicaragua and China.
Do you have the Hillary Clinton thing over here, real quick? This is really good, you know.
Yeah,
play it while we're waiting while we're connecting in.
This was what I intended to say if I had been elected in 2016. My fellow Americans, today you sent a message to the whole world. This was what I intended to say if I had been elected in 2016 My fellow Americans, today you sent a message to the whole world.
There's a great sideways.
My God.
There's a clip of her starting to cry as she's reading it.
Oh,
I can't believe you didn't get that clip, fam.
No, I didn't know. No.
I had the clip of Carl going, go away. Carl from Aqua Teen Hunger Force, where he's hiding, and it's just Hillary Clinton's face over there. Go away. Just go away, you freak. She won't go away, fam.
No, she won't.
How can we miss you if you don't go away?
Jesus Christ.
So we're going to go to section 3 over there, clip number 34, fam. Let's talk about this real quick to bring in our guest. You made a tweet over here. It says Nicaragua is now recognizing the People's Republic of China as the legitimate government representing Taiwan is extremely vital to cementing a relationship between China and Nicaragua. In other words, they're breaking away from Taiwan. They broke all ties. This was broke by Kasachua News. Of Kasachua News, we have with us our guest today, Camila. How you doing, Camila?
Hey, I'm good. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, we can hear you.
Fabulous.
Who's that poster of behind you, by the way? Who is that over there, over your left shoulder? Who's that?
That's Commander Fidel. It is a 1987 calendar of Commander Fidel that we put up just because I'm kind of like I made myself a makeshift studio because, as you guys know, I'm always on the road.
Yeah.
No, we were on the road with you.
We finally caught up with you.
And dude, like, it's so crazy. It's so exhausting. I mean, I don't know, man.
It is really exhausting. When you guys said you were gonna like take off from Nicaragua and go to, well, you guys were talking about going to a number of places, but I was just like, that's too much work. Like, why would you choose to do that? I already don't advise anyone do that unless they have, like, I guess, a team, and you guys kind of are a team, so maybe it works.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's still hard, but yeah,
it's hard work.
Camila, you've been with us in Nicaragua, and we're gonna start. We're gonna talk about Venezuela, but we want to start with Nicaragua a little bit because, this is a really big deal, right? They broke ties with Taiwan. They recognize a one-state China. So why is this such a big deal for people that may not? Because you said you were at the nail salon and you were like almost like through everything. You were ecstatic. Tell us why this is such a big deal.
Yes, I said I was at the nail salon for a friend's chat, not for the whole world. No, I was actually, because, as you know, we were invited to this press conference by the foreign ministry in which the different diplomatic, the different ambassadors from around the world joined the call to hear from Foreign Minister of Nicaragua, Dennis Moncada, and a number of members of the Nicaraguan national press and foreign press were also invited. And, in all my moving around, I got a little confused about the time zones. Now I'm on Eastern time. I'm actually in Toronto. I'm here to, for reasons of democratic promotion, trying to bring democracy to Canada. But I ended up being in the nail salon at the end, at the time that this began. So I logged on and I was absolutely just losing my shit because, the Wi-Fi is not so great. I don't have a SIM card, but I knew what was happening. And I was just like literally freaking out. You guys know, everyone is in any of these like journalists and Nicaragua chats know that it's a very exciting time. It's something that we had been speaking about when we were in Nicaragua in November 7th were the general elections there in which the Sandinista president, Commander Daniel Ortega, was reelected alongside Vice President Rosario Murillo. And so, everyone who had been there during these elections, particularly these sort of like anti-imperialist reporters, were kind of discussing, how it's really bizarre with 180 countries around the world having, strong relationships, or well, at least they have some form of diplomatic relations established with China, that some small amount of countries, mostly in Central America and the Caribbean, continue to have supposed ties with Taiwan. So that was broken yesterday at 4:30 p.m. Managua time. And, following that announcement by Dennis Moncada, which was very brief, a working meeting began between the presidential advisor, Laureano Ortega Murillo, in China, and they announced the resumption of ties between Nicaragua and China. Maybe you guys already went over this, I'm not sure. But so it's super exciting. Why it's significant to us? Well, I would really like people who are not as amped up about this sort of China SALAG or SALAC partnership, which is China and 32 countries of the Caribbean and Latin American community. People who are not excited about this, I would really like for them to come and shadow me. Maybe they can be a junior producer. Maybe they can be a video editor. I don't know. But shadow me around Latin America and see what the conditions are like and the reality of underdevelopment in Latin America through all these different countries, which the majority of them, the exceptions, of course, being Venezuela and Cuba and Nicaragua, have for many decades overwhelmingly had governments who have partnered with the United States and have had extremely close relationships with the United States. The United States has been there on the ground with all of their, sort of development projects and agencies. And we're just seeing a continuation of underdevelopment, absolutely bleak material conditions for people, lack of opportunity for young people in all sorts of countries of the global south. As we know, this is a known fact, no matter what your background is. If you're not from the north, if you're from some diaspora community from another country, what are the people in your country doing? A lot of them are still talking about what countries they can immigrate on based on the passport they have. If they're from Ecuador, they have a special relationship and ties with the government of Spain. So they're talking about going to Spain to go to university to learn English, going to Spain to learn English so that maybe once they're done with their degree in Spain, they can go to another country and get a job because they know they don't want to stay in Ecuador now under the neoliberal regime that just took office following 4 years of a neoliberal disaster government. And so this is the reality. People don't want to stay in their countries. Under all of the money that's being just absolutely showered by the United States on these different corrupt allied regimes, we're not seeing a lot of things being built or invested into public programs and into the actual populations to improve the conditions there. So, at this point, I think people are starting to see once and for all that there aren't more than one imperialist power, that really there's just, the global US empire and its allies, and that there are other, that there are different roads towards development, but that it's very important that at one point or another, we begin to catch up. I mean, do we not deserve that? Are we not deserving of the same things that exist here? Here you go, I'm in Toronto, Canada. Here you go up the street, I'm in like a hipster, eclectic, but actually very upper middle class area where you walk up the street. I'm sure you guys are familiar because of where you live. And there are like little places that are like chocolatiers, I don't know what they're called, but where you buy $10 pretzels dipped in chocolate, where you buy a coffee that's $5.50, where you buy, gummy bears that are coated in blah, blah. And it's actually, you have to wait in line to buy something at all of the stores, and all of the stores are like that. These are the things people have. There's so many different gifts. It's holiday time. People are buying stuff. There's so many different things people can buy. Why are these products not available in some countries? Well, because they're blockaded, because they're sanctioned, and because people are afraid to sell to those countries, and those governments have difficulties importing basic goods and necessities. The others, I mean, it's just people are earning extraordinarily low wages. There's no jobs for anyone in any age category. And so, people just live in a lower standard of living across the global south. This is the case for all of Latin America. And so, we need to begin to build these ties, South-South cooperation. That means, most importantly, with the large powers and large economies. Ideally, we would have these sorts of relationships with the United States and with all the European countries that were not antagonistic and that were for mutual benefit. And that, of course, is the end goal, is that sort of a multipolar world in which the decisions are made based on multilateralism and mutual respect, but we're at a point where they're not. So what we're looking towards is we're looking to all sorts of cooperation and trade agreements and all sorts of different of ways of organizing ourselves that include these smaller states here in, not this is the first time you're talking to me that I'm in Latin America, not in Latin America, but in the Americas, in Latin America and the Caribbean, teaming up with, or doing a collab with Russia, with China, with African states and other Asian states as well, in order to build a whole new world. And so it's extraordinarily important. If you see what everything is like in Nicaragua, it's very different from basically all other countries of Latin America, I would say. Nicaragua is the nicest country, has the nicest roads, it's clean, it's safe, there are no transnational criminal organizations. The Nicaraguan government has been successful in wiping out that sort of narco trafficking, those illicit activities that exist in all of the neighboring countries, Honduras, unfortunately, El Salvador, Costa Rica, Panama, Guatemala, and of course, Mexico. And then, to the south of Central America, Colombia. So these sorts of crimes don't exist. The level of disappearances don't exist that we see in other countries. extortion. There's just a very high quality education compared to all of the countries of the region. There's a high quality free universal public healthcare system. Just obviously more gender equality than you'll see around the region. And it's just clean and safe. It actually looks and feels like a place you want to be. And I would say another country that kind of follows, that's just right behind Nicaragua, well, not right behind, but it's a little far less developed, is Bolivia. They've had very similar economic models. And of course, it's very difficult to say that it's the same for Cuba and Venezuela, because those are countries that are under extremely tight blockades and unilateral coercive measures that make it extremely difficult to import the necessary, supplies and things that they need for everything imaginable. But this is going to change things, and this is just the beginning. They're speaking about canal project and all sorts. And those talks began today. So this is going to be very important, as you guys have probably mentioned as well. Honduras and the president-elect there, Xiomara Castro, will be also likely, after she takes office in January, will be recognizing China and doing away with that supposed diplomatic relation with Taiwan.
Go ahead.
Well, we don't know about that yet, because there's a lot of talk out there that she might not do that, and fear that what happened to her husband in 2009 with the coup might happen to her. There are 3 military bases in Honduras. They're in a different situation in Nicaragua. That's 3 U.S. military bases.
But she hasn't taken power yet.
She hasn't taken power.
Absolutely. I have faith. I want to have faith that she will. Right now, they're in the situation Nicaragua was, where they were recognizing Taiwan. So, I have faith that they will. But there's already a lot of people trashing her government already, even when she hasn't taken power, because of that, which is,
I asked the question to Manuel Zelaya. Manuel Zelaya was kind of like having faith a little bit, just have faith, whatnot. It is a different situation. And when it comes to Nicaragua, even though they were hit with these sanctions, Camila, I feel like Daniel Ortega and the Sandinista government knew this was coming. Like, they were prepared for this. I mean, this is a country that is 90% Nicaragua food efficient. They can feed themselves. And, when you talk about Bill Wee, Wyatt Reed came with us from Sputnik Radio. He came with us to Bill Wee. And he had been in Bill Wee years before, and he said, my God, they've built roads, they've built buildings right now. You can move around. Ahmed Cabello was going from Managua to Bill Wee with our friend Steven, and he said it took him 10 hours, but the trip used to have to take him 3 days. So the infrastructure projects in Nicaragua are there. Now we have China sitting at the table, right? Are these sanctions from the United States going to even be effective for them, Camila, for the United States? Because it seems like Daniel Ortega has a grip on the country and is now moving forward with more projects.
Yeah, exactly as you've said. It's not going to have the same effect as we've seen in Cuba, which has been under blockade for 60 years, or on Venezuela, who, they were just coming, they had been in power, but I think, they were attacked at a particularly weak point when Nicolas Maduro was succeeding Commander Hugo Chavez after he passed away. The food sovereignty is key. The fact that the country is already on its development path, so far into it, that it already has these massive projects, I think they're absolutely not going to be able to turn that around. And in fact, we've seen, as I think was presented to us, I'm not sure if you guys, it was presented to me this summer when it was released, but maybe to us as well when we were there for the elections in Nicaragua. But they just have a very extensive economic plan for the next, 5 years or whatever it is. This is more, I think that this announcement was more exciting for the entire region and world than for Nicaragua per se, because we have CARICOM as kind of a multilateral integrationist project. We have ALBA, now we have SALAG, and all of these different organizations are trying to find ways of building ties with China and have China as a key part of development here in the region. And so, I think the canal could potentially make an absolutely massive impact on the way in which we trade. Obviously, the United States has control over all of the waters, much of the waters surrounding our continent. This is a huge problem. But I think, you know, where the anti-China people would say that this is some sort of, you know, some sort of Chinese expression of Chinese imperialism, or whatever the hell it is they say. It is literally the opposite. It's about the countries here having sovereignty over their own territories and water. It's about actually being able to balance things out for the first time, and not living in fear or being coerced into corners, backed into the decisions that don't represent the will of the people or the governments that they elected to represent them. So it changes absolutely everything beyond just Nicaragua.
Yeah, and speaking of that, you know, when we were in Honduras, we saw kind of a little bit of animosity from some people towards Nicaragua, you know, not recognizing their elections. And it's not everybody, right? It was like middle of the road. Some people were very supportive and some people were not. And that was just our experience in Honduras. Like, you know, that Ortega didn't actually win his election. And some people were like, no, we need to build relationships with Nicaragua. So what type of relationship do you think the Sandinistas government will have with the Libre Party in Honduras?
That is extraordinarily important. I mean, what you've just described there is just the, you know, the result of the far right controlled media that we see all over Latin America, absolutely smearing any leftist government. In, you know, the countries I've been living in recently, in Ecuador and in Peru, I mean, in Bolivia, I watched Peruvian media as well, but we see kind of like, you know, Rafael Correa being smeared. We see Lula. We're in South America. I can only imagine that in the case of Central America, there's, in all of these countries, including El Salvador, there's a very strong war on the Sandinistas. But unfortunately, anyone who holds those beliefs haven't actually been to the country. When they go to the country, they'll see that if you actually speak to people, you'll be able to find someone possibly who's against the government. But on a whole, like at least 4 out of 5 people are going to be extremely supportive of the government, and they have their reasons, and they say they've always voted Sandinista and they'll continue to, and nothing has changed, unlike what the reports of the foreign media seem to say, that all these people were Sandinistas and they left and they abandoned that support. That absolutely doesn't exist. So obviously there's going to be some regurgitating of those far right views that this wasn't a democratic election. I experienced that myself just talking to immigration officers in different airports. They say, where are you going? I was in El Salvador. I spoke to one of these narco officers who pulled me aside and, you know, was trying to like look through my things and stuff. And I said, I'm a reporter. I'm going to Nicaragua. There are elections there. He's like, oh, they have elections? And he was like trying to make a joke saying like, are there any other presidential candidates running? And I said, yes, in fact, there are 7. And, you know, he had all these jokes, and it's just obvious that he just watches the one channel. And that one channel he watches has nothing to do with any reflection of reality. So I think already there are some like very important ties that have been maintained throughout all of the coup between the people of Honduras, the social movements, the Libre Party, and the Sandinistas. Those, you know, despite this long period of like a total lack of democracy there, those relations were maintained. We at, you know, La Via Campesina, the social movement, which is like one of the largest social movements in the world, is extremely key and to Central America. It's very much Central America, and Nicaragua specifically is kind of a base for La Via Campesina in Latin America. So some of the very key leaders of La Via Campesina in Central America are actually based in Honduras. So this means that it's kind of like a base for the most important social movement in which they go between different countries. They're building internationally on issues like food sovereignty. These are not issues that peoples are dealing with individually. It's not total anarchism. It's not all sorts of like little communities and peoples and indigenous peoples having their own little project and everything is like decentralized and blah, blah. Actually, in some ways, the issue of food sovereignty is being tackled in a very coordinated fashion. So, you know, they're fighting against You know, they're fighting at the United Nations and against big agro corporations, against pesticides, against GMOs, and trying to democratize like food production and distribution around the world. So this is kind of like below the level of government and below the government, or below the level of, you know, electoral politics or whatever else. There's a relationship that exists on another level, and that's between social movements. And that has been extremely key. There was a delegation that went from Nicaragua to Honduras during the elections to support, you know, those democratic elections, that process, and ensure that, you know, that everything went smoothly. And that's very important because, you know, like when we on the news, especially on the big networks, we talk about all the electoral missions there. So there's always going to be the OAS. There are some electoral observer missions from Latin America, but they're kind of structured in the same way as the UN observer mission, as the European Union. But it's very important that there's a presence of social movements and independent media, as you guys know as well. So I think that is going to be extraordinarily important, that there's pressure from below, from the social movements, from the campesinos, the indigenous people, the Afro-descendant populations that are pushing the government towards certain policies so that the government knows that they're not alone. This has been key in the case of Bolivia. In the case of Bolivia, you know, the sorts of policies that the MAS government, beginning with Evo and now with Lucho Arce, they've taken stands that have been extremely bold and difficult to take. And, you know, they would be extremely unpopular to the United States and their allies. And the reason they've been able to take these positions is because they know that they have the majority of the country supporting them. They don't have just 40% or, you know, whatever it is of the population, but the majority support these sorts of these positions against imperialism, against intervention, et cetera, et cetera. So that's going to be extremely important when we see these different attempts and maneuvers to overthrow the government or not allow the government of Honduras to even take power, that they receive that constant push from below and supporting their anti-imperialist policies, their integrationist policies, and trying to build with the countries around them. They'll need that mandate from the people.
Yeah. It's funny though, because I didn't think that this move from China, from Nicaragua to to push out Taiwan and to let China come in quickly, I didn't think it would happen this fast. I was still kind of like, well, maybe it will be a slow pace thing. But now with China here, and you've even talked about the canal, like America has control of the Panama Canal, right? They control the maritime waterways, how trade is made. So are you scared that if they go along with these projects, right, that there might be some type of military attack, maybe from the United States, or less, maybe like a proxy attack, sending paramilitary groups in from Honduras and El Salvador, some gangs in there to cause some things? Is that really possible for this to happen if America, it feels that, this project with China and Nicaragua can really take off?
I think that they no longer have control of the media narrative and that they know that. And for that reason, they've had to rely on these mercenaries and paramilitaries. They can no longer do these outright attacks and invasions the way they did, in 1989 in Panama. And so I think that'll be, I don't think that we'll see that sort of like blatant military intervention, but that we will see these attacks and hostilities from the neighboring countries, like you guys said, Costa Rica. But I mean, this is I think it's just becoming extraordinarily difficult for them. I mean, as it is, they were pushed to accept that the left was going to take power in Honduras. What we're told is that the United States is represented by Salvador Nasrallah, and that he's supposed to be kind of the agent of the United States within the left. He was the presidential candidate for the Libre Party in Honduras in 2017. He actually won, but of course those elections were fraudulent and were taken away from him. But he was never kind of a leftist figure. He is the sort of liberal guy. And so he's going to be given, assuming everything goes as planned and she actually takes power, he and some of his people, for their support in this big coalition that was formed in order to win the elections, is going to be given a number of seats in the cabinet. And there will be some danger within that. You guys know the situation of Peru better than I do, but there's going to be a lot of pressure within the government, even beyond the sorts of hostilities that they might find from the exterior. So that could make it extremely difficult to, pursue the sort of progressive agenda within her government.
Yeah, so let's get quickly to Venezuela. You went out to cover the elections in Venezuela. We had one of our comrades on as well to talk about it, but I want to hear from you. What was the sentiment out in Venezuela and prior to the election and then after the election?
Yeah, I think Venezuelans are just really good at elections. Everything just runs extremely smoothly, efficiently. It's just so obvious that there's no sort of irregularities on a major scale. And, there was almost nothing to report on in the way that there was with you guys. So, of course, we know that in the case of Honduras, the country voted for the left. They wanted to change. But even within that, you guys were reporting, the ways in which there was some voter suppression, just a lot of technical problems. Same with Peru, like people not showing up to do their kind of like poll duty and stuff like that. I mean, no such thing exists in Venezuela. So it's just kind of like sitting at the poll. I mean, I was like tired of getting all of my B-roll and everything of just the same thing of people voting. So I was just sitting outside of the polling stations, just talking to people who were like just hanging out, like, whatever, having a chat on the curb and just talking to everyone. And I think this is the first time, obviously this is the first time that all sectors, including the far right, US-backed opposition, actually participated. And the narrative that they would like to spin is that if they put all of their parties and candidates together and they all went on one slate, and they joined forces, and they would have more, they would be more electorally viable and they would win the entire elections. If they said that if this were a presidential election, which just took place, the opposition would have won. I mean, it wasn't a presidential election. What they had was, 25 or whatever. I mean, probably just literally a bajillion different parties and candidates. And the Venezuelan ruling party, the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, won overwhelmingly, like 20 states. So plus Caracas, the federal district. So, the opposition had absolutely no chance, despite that for the first time, instead of demobilizing people and telling people to abstain, they actually were out and about trying to get people pumped up for this election. They were actually going on the the Venezuelan national news networks and sitting down in studio and having these having these sorts of interviews where they're like campaigning and telling all of their talking points and all of their promises. They were attacking the PSUV candidates. And so they absolutely were trying to mobilize people, and they still lost. So I think that this, in some ways, it indicates to the Chavistas that they do need to look out. Obviously, there were a lot of people who went out and voted for the opposition that looks scary on paper, but in the end, they like the PSUV won all of the governorships. I think that's what matters most, right? Like under the national level, if they won all of the states, and that's all that matters. But I think none of the electoral observer missions that were there reported any irregularities, apart from, I think, was it the European Union? I mean, it was just kind of ridiculous. I think, they always have to cast some doubt on the process. But at the end of the day, I think like what people are talking about now is this sort of opportunity that the opposition has to recall the president. That is, after 3 years, I believe, in office, they are able to call for a recall vote in which the president would be put to a national vote and could actually lose the presidency. So this is something that they feel that they can talk about And if it were to happen, it would happen in March. It would require both sides to do a lot of campaigning. But in Venezuela, in Venezuela, there's just all sorts of signs of economic recovery. I mean, it's just a totally different country in some ways.
Venezuela, right?
In Venezuela, everything is just becoming more and more available. All the sorts of products that we saw on all of these, stupid news outlets that were saying that they weren't available, or that you had to stand in these big long lines. I mean, if any of that existed for some period between 2017 to 2019, they've reappeared now. People are getting their hands on them. I've been at my friends' houses. Like, if you go to a bathroom, you see the same products that we have in the north there in Venezuela as well, which is just like Colgate toothpaste, Pantene shampoo, like it's all the same. And people are finding ways of making income in dollars, because a lot of things, unfortunately, is in dollars now. It's something that the Chavistas want to do, is to try to protect their own currency. But with all these signs of recovery, there's also just tons of people who, economic migrants who were forced to leave because of how difficult things were under the sanctions, or they were coerced into leaving, tricked into leaving, promised a better life in places like Peru, Colombia, and Ecuador. They're actually now returning, and they're actually making money in dollars and just kind of have like a better life now in Venezuela. And we're expecting to see a really large wave of people like that coming back this December, because they always come back around the holidays, and they'll be there to stay. So I think,
that's great.
It's good to hear.
That's great. Yeah. Did you see any crypto going around in there? We heard from our other comrade that Bitcoin is kind of getting in there right now, and they're taking some payments, and it's actually helped them get around some of the sanctions. Have you witnessed any of that when you were in Venezuela, in particular Caracas?
I mean, that's been there for years. Venezuela was the first country in the Americas to do that. I first saw it in 2018, where you just kind of have these, they call them they have like bodegas or something. I think they call them that. I mean, it's a very specific name for a place that, I know the word bodega exists everywhere, but like there, it usually means these kind of stores for middle-class people, where they have like imported items. So it's not just like a corner store with like the cheapest like iced tea or whatever, but it's like where you get like a Diet Dr. Pepper cherry Coke, like those sorts of things. And you pay dollars for them. And so those sorts of places have been accepting all sorts of different crypto for years now. And so I can only imagine that now that that's becoming more of a thing around the world and continent, that it's increased. I personally wasn't even looking for it. I was shocked and pleased to find that you can now use a credit card again. For a while, you weren't able to use credit. The only thing you could really use to buy anything was like a Venezuelan debit card. And you couldn't even use cash, obviously, because the cash was, not worth a whole lot, let's say. And so, now all those companies are coming back. You can use credit card. They are taking more payments. So I'm not sure. What did they say Bitcoin specifically, or?
One of our friends, our comrades talked about the fact that he saw more crypto and Bitcoin usage in Venezuela this time out, more than usual. So just was wondering if, and this is news to me that they were one of the first to have it there. You know what I'm saying?
They were. Yeah. Like, I wish I could remember I had taken pictures, but like even at the place where I took my PCR test, like they always have like a whole list. And this is so specific to Venezuela that has had so many problems with payments and cash, that they always have a list of all the different ways you can send money. You can send money. This is not crypto, but you can send money through Zelle. I mean, that's kind of weird for a Latin American country. Or they'll receive payment for a PCR test through Zelle, through PayPal, through all of the different things. And that's at a clinic, a private clinic. So, but at some of those bodegas, they have all of those things. Plus they list the crypto that they accept. That includes the Petro. But it's kind of, the Petro is something that's still kind of like unutilized, that they began to distribute, and they did an experiment with giving people the equivalent of what was at the time $30, I think, in Petro, and people just kind of spent it right away because they didn't want to hold on to it because they didn't know what it was or what to do with it. It's a very important project that a lot of people are hoping that they'll bring back and continue to kind of give out, because the Venezuelan government gives out bonuses, sometimes multiple times a month for different things, for like mothers with children, for back to school, for Mother's Day, all sorts of things like that. And it just arrives as a text message, and it's linked to the Patria system, and you go online through your app and you deposit it into your bank account. But it's currently done in the Venezuelan like Soberano, but it could also be a way for them to distribute petro, so that people are using crypto to be able to buy necessary goods, but it's not something they're doing yet.
And just, I don't know if you have any questions. I just wanted to say, just to wrap up, Joe Biden's having his democracy summit today. Was the last day. They invited Juan Guaido. We know that he's nobody in Venezuela. Is there anybody else that, because we've heard, there's a new guy in town. Do you who is this guy? Does he have any sort of anything?
He's not a new guy. No, he's a very old guy, and he's a guy that the U.S. passed up a long time ago, because he was the guy. Like, he was the coup, the face of the coup, Leopoldo Lopez, for many years. And there have been many of these people who the U.S. thought would sort of lead, their coup attempts and be able to run in elections at first, and then also that they thought they might be able to insert into the country as some, I don't know. They were trying to use him as a Guaido before.
Right.
They passed up on him because they didn't want to have someone with such a tarnished record, because from the very beginning of these sorts of mercenary attempts and all these different things that have gone on throughout the years, from the Guarimbas in 2014, the Nicaraguan government, was the Venezuelan government, sorry. The Venezuelan government was very clear about who was behind financing the Guarimbas, who was organizing these kids to go do meth and commit crimes. And one of those people was Leopoldo. And so they knew that when they needed to choose a Guaido person, that they couldn't choose someone that has just been so widely denounced. So they passed up on him, but he's just has a much higher profile because, he was considered to be, by the far right of the continent in Europe, he was considered to be a political prisoner. And so his wife and some of the other far right actors raised a really high profile for him internationally, and people know his name within the country, whereas no one knew Guaido's name in January of 2019 at the time he swore himself in. So I think they're just trying to go back to the basics, because the degree to which Guaido has failed. But speaking to people within Venezuela, it's just really important. And I spoke to so many people, but I didn't record it because I know people get weird if they're not used to, these are not media people. They don't have media training. They're not celebrities. There's regular people. So they get kind of weird if you put a camera on their face and say you're going to ask them questions. But I spoke to a number of people who just plain and simply said that they're against the government. They wish there was an alternative. They would like to, they would like to have someone else to vote for. They think these chavistas are bad, but these ones are good. This governor was a good chavista. This one, this one is controlling this or that, whatever it is. But they also say that they don't support Guaido, and that they had hoped when he came on the scene and they found out who he was, they had hoped that this would be, that this would be a good thing, that there would be they actually would like to see some sort of democratic opposition to the PSUV government, but they said that this isn't it, that this is all people who are just embellishing themselves, that they're embroiled in corruption, and that they've been receiving all sorts of money to be the opposition here and try to take power from the legitimate government. And so they think that it's a total lost cause. They don't support any of those actors. Who they might be supporting is some of the other figures of the opposition, some of who are known, some of them who ran in these regional elections, but they completely denounce and would like to distance themselves from these corrupt US-backed actors. So I think, the US is having to start over again. The opposition there is going to have to start over again. And there's so many different oppositions. And we met with, just one last thing, we met with the National Assembly. A number of electoral observers and some journalists while we were there for the elections met with members of the National Assembly of Venezuela, two of which were from opposition parties. One was with the governing Chavistas, and the opposition members of parliament basically also completely reject the Guaido faction of the opposition and say these people are violent. They're going to the exterior. They're asking for sanctions. They're against the sanctions themselves. These like democratic opposition. I mean, this is debatable as well, because obviously all people from the opposition have kind of gone to war with the government and have done a horrible job of denouncing all the violence that took place in 2017, where people lost their lives just for being a Chavista. So, but they too have been trying to create some distance between them and the other far right. So, so it's very important to know that just across the board, whether it's the Chavistas or the other supporters of different oppositions there, most people are rejecting sanctions. Most people want, you know, the government and their elected authorities to be chosen within the country and not externally. And so they're not going to be willing to support another Guaido.
Yeah. Johnny, did you have a question?
Are you guys done asking questions?
Yeah,
we're done. Johnny's got a
Hi,
question.
Jonathan.
Hey, Camila, how you doing? What's the best food out there right now?
I didn't know if Johnny is like an on-camera person, or like how does this work? People just know he's behind the camera. He doesn't get to come on
in front of the camera sometimes, and sometimes he just, you know, he's from the bleachers hanging on out. Sometimes he's engineering the show. He's a man of many faces. He does everything on the Convo Couch. So
we need a better studio so I can get my camera.
Yeah, bigger studio.
Bigger studio, but yeah, I was gonna ask you, what's your favorite food out there right now, or in Venezuela when you were there?
Oh God. Well, yeah, I'm just the basics. Just arepa is my favorite. You know, Venezuela has a big Arab community. So I did have some Lebanese food while I was there, but you know, I mean, I don't think Lebanese food in Venezuela is different from Lebanese food in other places. So, I did have some of that, but I eat arepas when I'm at home. No matter what country I'm in, I buy arepa flour. And I just love having it there, knowing that I'm eating it the way it's supposed to be made. And that's my favorite. I usually get it with avocado and something else. Like always with avocado, sometimes with like just egg. If it's breakfast, I'll have like a breakfast arepa or, you know, carne machada.
Wow.
Nice. Well, we all miss you. We'll see you in Nicaragua, and I'll see you on the island.
I'm gonna see you guys in Nicaragua soon, right?
Yeah.
That's really exciting. I'm really excited, and like I'm gonna see this as kind of like I'm just saying it right now. It's gonna be like a party trip for me, a relaxation trip. Obviously I work like a fucking dog, and when you guys saw me when I got sick in Nicaragua, I'm still sick now. Like I'm not sick now, but I'm just getting over it. And it's literally because I just go nonstop. So I'm really excited to be a part of that and cover the inauguration of Comandante Daniel, but I would really like to enjoy it. And Nicaragua is just such a beautiful country. It has, you know, absolutely wonderful tourism infrastructure and a lot to do there. So I'm hoping I can kind of take a little bit of that and maybe do some fun, like cultural coverage and not work myself to death. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys there. And of course, thereafter on the island with Johnny.
All right, Camila, thank you.
She
so
works
much.
hard, though. Really, to tell you, you work hard, Camila. I really was impressed and
by yourself, like
awesome and stuff.
Thank you so much for coming on and educating everybody. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
News, everybody.
See you
Tell
guys
everybody
soon.
They can find you.
Yeah, on Kasashwa News. We're trying to just be on more platforms. Ollie and I are trying to do a stream soon. We thought we would do it before, but all the traveling gets crazy. He's in the Amazon right now, the Amazon of Bolivia, so there's no coverage. But pretty soon we will actually launch our own podcast or stream or whatever. But apart from that, we're on Kasashwa News on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok.
Yeah. And don't forget, next year coming up in October, we got to go to Brazil, because there might be a big showdown over there. It might be Bolsonaro versus Lula. Early Lula. Early
Just make it Lulu.
Like who's Lulu?
We'll be there.
Lula.
Yeah. We'll see you there too.
Camila, thank you so much. See you later.
Thank you.
Have fun.
Catch you guys later.
Bye.
Camila Escalante, everybody, Casachuan News.
Yes, check
Our
them
new
out. They have
friend.
some of the best coverage, especially I think right now, and
Latin
especially
America.
Bolivia, the
Oh,
best
yeah.
coverage of Bolivia, hands down, and
By
everything
far.
that went down. And yeah, she's always on the go, and when she's by herself, I mean, it's just herself and her camera. So yeah, check them out. I'm so excited for their podcast or whatever new show. Yeah, that was a lot of information, but it was well worth it. And I think you know, what's happened so far in Latin America is in the relationship with China is going to, you know, I mean, a lot of our friends, you know, they're like, you know, China's another empire. I disagree with that. I think China's a superpower. I don't think they're an empire yet. I think they're doing some things in Africa that we should be looking at 100%. And any sort of, I think, superpower though is, in my opinion, too much concentration of power. But how you have a relationship with the country, do you is a relationship going to be balanced between Nicaragua and China? Because if it's not, I guarantee you the people of Nicaragua will not stand for it.
Yeah,
because they are not
won't
a
stand
people.
for it either.
Because, they're not a kind of government that's going to allow anything to happen. Anything else, Johnny?
No,
okay.
It is something that we have to have to pause on this whole situation, because United States too is not going to just sit there back and let China come in. We understand what happened with the Cuban Missile Crisis, right? So they went crazy, the United States government. They threatened World War III. So as China gets more and more of their influence, and they do it the right way. I don't give a damn what people say. It's like, oh, this is about like confessions of an economic hitman. All right, you want to talk about the economics and how they're coming in. It's still a far greater difference than what the United States does. Come in there militarily wise, bully, go in there, put their bases up. It's all about the military industrial complex going into these countries, and then manufacturing consent by saying their elections are fake. That's why when we do our work to say, look at these elections, we're giving the answers to the people who have questions and say, are their elections really legit? Are their elections real? So it's really, really important to point these things out, but we have to wait and see what the United States will do. I am very fearful, fam, of something hard and coming fast from the United States, because the government does not like what Nicaragua is doing there across the board.
No.
Yeah. So let's read some super rays and we'll get to the last chapter real quick, the last section. Ronnie Graham says, I mentioned the useful idiots, that they are in the crosshairs after Assange, but truthfully, I am more worried about the welfare of you, Pasta and Fee. This is serious in my opinions. And talking about the Assange situation, that how it does put everybody in danger right now. Now they've just manufactured consent to shut up anybody who speaks out against the empire.
The fact that my entire Twitter got taken down, and I was very touched by how many people were really upset about that, because you know, not because it's like I have a lot of followers, but because of the voice, right? The cutting off of a voice that so many people like feel like they like to hear what I say, and it's like the cutting off of it doesn't matter. The fact, if they took down the president of the United States, they can take out any one of us, no matter how many followers you have, no matter how many things. I mean, they took down the president of the United States, and people cheered it on because it was somebody they didn't like, somebody that's dislikable, unpopular for a lot of people. But then, of course, now we're in the situation where Julian Assange, who is a journalist, you know, for publishing this information, is now being punished. And he's being punished, so we shut up. And now is the time we speak louder than ever. Now is the time to really, really step up our activism. You know, we're talking with Steve and Misty and all of them. We're like, we need another event. It's been almost a year since we were there, you know, in January, and we're going to be in Nicaragua on January, throughout, you know, the Central America in January. But, you know, we need to have an event, I think, some sort of protest. We need more people on board. We need more journalists. I'm glad I'm seeing a lot of people have, you know, their own little YouTube shows, their own podcasts or whatever. That was definitely not there before. I'm glad I'm seeing more people, because like we said on the bitch stream, 2.5-hour bitch stream, where we were all just like, you know, bitching, that we need more help. We need help. Like there's no possible way in the world that we can cover every single thing that's going on. I mean, it is hard work. It takes a lot of research. You don't want to say something that is not true. So you can't just lazily do it. And, you know, I would like to have more time to write. I would like to have more time to do more things. It's just so ridiculous when you're traveling and everything. And it really, we need more help. And if you have issues with what we don't cover it yourself, or like send it to us. We try to look at everything. We try to look at what people send us. So
I got like 3 different things. I couldn't even bring up what people are sending me. There's something going on in New York in the park, in Central Park, where they're kind of deforesting a bunch of trees. My friend Patricia sent it to me. I'm just still looking at it. You know, I was on the phone with people in Arizona yesterday. I might be going to Arizona to talk at a convention, whatnot, about election integrity, what we witnessed in Nicaragua and in Honduras. So there's so many things going on. And like Fam said, if you're not happy with some of the stuff we're covering, cover it yourself. Be a citizen journal yourself. We do the best we can with the resources we have, and it is a lot of work. I mean, there's days where you don't get sleep.
Yeah.
You know, an hour, 2 hours sleep, and then you're on the road and you're running all over the country looking at elections, observing, and then you have press conferences and trying to do a show. There's a lot of things out there. We need more of us out there. What's our homeboy Kobe? You know, picking up the slack, doing stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? You know, when Franco said, you know, he was inspired to do what he did, what we're doing, we need more people to jump in and start doing it and be consistent with it. Continue to do it. Don't stop. By the way, David Crow's here. Crow.
We miss you.
Hail David Crow. Kashama Swamp wins a right-wing recall effort in Seattle. Good news. David, it's not just a right-wing recall. This is a neoliberal wing, neoliberal recall too as well. There are establishment Democrats that are tied to Amazon and all these other corporations that did not want to see Kashama Swamp survive over there.
Seattle is one of the most liberal places in the world, and you have all these tech bros and all these techie people there too. And so that is one of the reasons why, you know, that there was that supposed DSA person. DSA said they don't know who she is, but supposed DSA person said that, you know, oh, I'm voting for the recall, blah, blah, blah. And then you see where she works. She works in like tech in those areas. It's like, well, duh. Like whether she was DSA or not, like the reality is that there's so much money put in to stop. And I, you know, like Shama is a Trotskyist or comes from that belief. I don't like the Trots at all. Like they're just very divisive. A lot of communists don't like them. And you know, but I don't put a whole label. She is really good at organizing and getting things done in Seattle as a city councilwoman, as a local leader. I'm not so sure about her policy overall, but as a local city council leader, she's done an amazing job. And I always say it, of getting, you know, using her voice and her power in local office to literally get change and literally show tangible change that helps people. That's what I like to see. I don't really care what your ideology is. If you can do that, if you can help people, I'm going to support you all the way through.
Well, this is the you have to proceed with caution, David, when you say right-wing recall. It's more than right-wing, okay? I think in Washington, you see a lot of those old progressives play that right-wing, left-wing game, and it kind of justifies them still running in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is a corporate party. End of story. They're tied to big tech.
Well, the Democratic Party is a right-wing party.
It is a right-wing party too as well. But I mean, it's not right-wing, left-wing United States. That's the whole thing too. Right-wing, left-wing in the global South means right-wing, left-wing. In America, there is no left-wing. And that's what a lot of people say. There is no left-wing. So you can say it's a right-wing recall, but you can't leave out the fact that a lot of corporations and Democrats, establishment Democrats, backed by these big corporations, are for this recall too as well. They don't like Shama either. You know what I'm saying? Really so that's just something just to kind of point out. Mandy Zimmerly, fam, left a nice, lovely tip. Thank you, Mandy Zimmerly. And she didn't leave anything, so let me say that it is always appreciated on the couch. We were waiting for that one, weren't we, fam? Let's get to the last section, guys. It's going to be a short one. It could have been a long section. I started like plugging about 12 tweets, and I said, let me just go down to the best 4 tweets and leave it be, because the other day, congressional hearing took place on cryptocurrency, of course, as well. And the U.S. government, at the end of the day, is scared. There's a lot of people in there that were kind of mentioning the fact that there's no regulation, it's bad on the environment. But then we saw a push from a lot of Republicans who are now seeing their constituents, they're seeing their voter base going, oh, it's all about, you know, a cryptocurrency. So now they're getting on board with it. The Republicans, just because it's votes, right? You know what I'm saying? And now it's also, they're trying to sell it as anti-China. Xi Jinping supposedly banned all crypto Bitcoin miners in the country. So therefore, they're trying to sell it as, oh, check a look at this. This is anti-China. Let's get into it.
Interesting.
It is interesting, but I do want to point out the fact that it was a lot of Democrats, once again, establishment Democrats, who don't give a damn. And I put this tweet up over here, and we'll play the quick video. It says that, okay, the hearing was chock full of great moments. To start off, Representative Maxine Waters got straight to the point. Crypto has no overreaching or centralized regulatory framework, leaving investments in the digital aspect space vulnerable to fraud, manipulation, and abuse. Oh, crypto. Fraud.
The fiat dollar isn't vulnerable. We don't have the Nancy Pelosi making millions of dollars.
Yes.
Right? We don't have the Wall Street, literally Wall Street is all I need to say. What happened with Wall Street bets? I mean, we don't have any of that.
Yes.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, 2008, they were The Big Short. You can watch the movie. It was a great movie. They just played games. They with people's money, their pensions and stuff. And people went to the poorhouse in 2008, and Obama bailed out Wall Street, left mainstream in the dust. And that's what I put down. I said, no shit. That's why some people like crypto, because they don't have the central banks. They don't have the IMF. If I can go around it, I'm going to go around it. There's two choices. There is no reforming our financial system, fam. There is no reforming. You either blow it up or you go around it. And that's why crypto has been successful, specifically Bitcoin. So, and I put that down. Remember 2008? Remember Wall Street bets? When the 1% laughed in our faces as the Americans took it in the kisser? Well, of course, Maxine Waters starts off that way. Here's a quick clip of her with the opening statements right off the jump.
Currently, cryptocurrency markets have no overarching or centralized regulatory framework, leaving investments in the digital aspect space vulnerable to fraud, manipulation, and abuse.
So that, I mean, there was a lot of that, fam. I can make a whole show with people just plugging their things. Well, it's open to fraud. It's open to manipulation. What about the energy source? This is awful, whatnot. You know what I'm saying? But I kind of left it out, and I wanted to point out some of the positive things, because the CEOs that were called there from Coinbase and other companies, they really just kept it positive. It did seem a lot like a lot of Congress showed up that didn't do their homework, that might have read an article or two that was anti-crypto and tried to bring it to the floor. And I said to myself, these are our lawmakers over here?
Yeah, they don't do their homework ever. I mean, there's 2,700-page bills that they don't even read.
Yeah.
So I don't expect them to do their homework with this either, especially people like Maxine Waters. Crypto is very much liked and embraced by a lot of younger people, right? The president of El Salvador, Bukele, he's a younger leader. He's embracing it. A lot of young people are embracing it. We just went to a crypto thing where it was a bunch of young people. Like, it's just the NFTs, all of that stuff is geared towards younger people. But we have a bunch of freaking like Stone Age leaders who are just, they don't understand it. They don't know anything about it. And for me, the best thing about crypto that I've heard thus far is from our friends who have seen it being used in countries like Venezuela and in other countries where they can bypass these sanctions and find a way to make some money or get some money sent to their families.
Yeah. Well, one of the areas that's really good, and they really kind of pointed this out, and it was great to see a congressman from Congressman Torres, and I believe he represents the Bronx, which has a big Dominican Republican base over there too as well. So he understands, he sees what's going on in El Salvador, and he kind of pointed out, well, what about the remittance in Dominican Republican? Because I have all these people from the Dominican Republic that could use the Bitcoin wallets and whatnot and transfer money back without that third middleman there,
like
that
Western Union.
Predator banks, Western Union being the number one, soaking it up. So take a look at Congressman Torres. I just want to point out a positive thing about crypto, what we're seeing.
To me, are the use cases of crypto that would improve the lives of the people of the South Bronx. I represent a heavy population of immigrants who often pay predatory fees in order to send remittances to their loved ones abroad. So what can crypto, blockchain, Web3 do for that Dominican immigrant in the South Bronx who is burdened by remittance fees that she cannot afford? How much more affordably and quickly can the crypto economy facilitate remittances? Mr. Cascarelli, if you could take that question and please be specific.
Yes, thank you for the question. I think this is a really important element of the technology, which again is that it's open to anybody. You don't need to have a bank account. You don't need to, in fact, rely on any intermediary. So somebody who's an immigrant and wants to send a remittance to a family member in another country is able to do that. And there's ways to do it with both crypto and to do it with a stable coin. And all you need to do is download a wallet, and then you can send it to somebody else anywhere in the world. And so this is a really powerful tool for democratization of access, especially for those who have difficulty getting bank accounts. There's no minimum fees. There's no minimum balances. There's no check cashing fees that are part of this technology. And you can do it in some cases for, a penny or less.
And how much?
That is big, fam. That is huge. And that's something we talked about. I grabbed somebody, do you want anything to say of that? Because I also want to show you the United States ambassador to El Salvador talking about since they've implemented the program, how much money they've saved. Because the one thing that was really surprising to me going through Central America was all the ties to the American dollar. The American dollar is still there. You could use the American dollar at any place to pay for anything. The American corporations are still there. But with cryptocurrencies and even Bitcoin, now you can bypass all these fees that you have to pay. He was saying, the congressman over here, burdened that they can't afford these remittances.
Right.
$90 or $100, if it costs you $100 to send $500 to El Salvador, that $100 now that can go to the family, how much does that mean to a family in Honduras, Nicaragua, El Salvador?
Yeah, I mean, Honduras is run primarily the economy through remittances because they were in such a dismal economic situation. 73% of people live in poverty. So it's a big deal when you have to pay, and people like Western Union or companies like Western Union have this monopoly on the remittance in Honduras. So when we asked about that, we asked because we think it would help.
Yeah.
We thought, it would help. And I think they would be wise to eventually start talking about Bitcoin in these countries because it does help a lot of immigrant people and their families, and also a lot of people just in those countries that like Dominican Republic are very poor and don't have the access to a lot of working jobs and it's just hard. It's like sometimes that the economy is dependent on people from America, immigrants from America, sending money back to their families.
Yeah, and that's something that's big. That's why it's not cryptocurrencies and now Bitcoin in particular are not about just talking about digital assets. They're actually talking about different ways of banking for poor countries, not only to get around sanctions, but to send money back and forth, which therefore they can get more money to their families. That's more bread on the table. That's more rice and beans. That's more electricity. That's maybe getting now internet, for the young kids now. There's so many more things they can do right now that they've taken that predatory third party out of play. Now, this is the ambassador to El Salvador over here. This is a quick 3-minute clip, fam. She talks about how much they've saved and the other benefits of crypto and moving forward.
Bitcoin is a famously volatile currency, and if Bitcoin continues to rise, then this could be really great for El Salvador, but if it crashes, it could be kind of problematic. So what is the plan if Bitcoin crashes or if Bitcoin doesn't rise to the extent that some people are hoping?
Well, I think that question is for the economic cabinet. Because they are the ones that are implementing all these financial plans. But I understand that if they're doing this, it's because they have a goal that Bitcoin is going to keep going up, and we can have a profit of this. Bitcoin, of course, it goes up, it goes down, but we are surrounded by the experts in cryptocurrencies. Well, let me tell you that we implemented the national wallet, Chivo wallet, and I want to give you some numbers. In 2 months, we have made the Salvadorian people to be a part of this new system. Around 80% of them right now, they're using the Chivo wallet, and from the United States, they're sending the remittances at zero cost. Almost $32 million. We have received in remittances through the Chivo wallet. And the Chivo wallet came with the Bitcoin law. And the Chivo wallet make you decide if you want to send money in Bitcoin or in dollars. The cost of sending remittances to El Salvador in the traditional system, generally it costs you around $400 to $700 million. And right now with the Chivo wallet, they're not spending any cent to send money to their families in El Salvador. So this is one of the big advantages. And also, we have a lot of tourism right now in El Salvador, and they were using the Chivo wallet to make transactions. And you can buy anything in El Salvador with Bitcoin. You can buy sodas, pay taxes, pay hotels and everything. So, it's a different country. Right now, we have different alternatives, but it's your choice. You can choose if you want to use dollar or Bitcoin. That's the wonderful thing. it's we're a land of freedom too, so you can decide if you want to send your remittances in dollar, Bitcoin, and use our national wallet, or use the traditional system in which a lot of Salvadorian people in the United States, they don't have banking accounts. It's tough for them because they don't have financial inclusion. And with the Chivo wallet, we are seeing that almost 4 million people are using it right now in 2 months.
In 2 months.
Right, because a lot of people who in the United States aren't necessarily documented or don't have equity, don't have a bank account. So how are they going to do this, right? And so that it creates an alternative measure of how to help people. So a lot of detractors against Bitcoin, and I'm not as giddy about Bitcoin as Pasta is, but I do see that it does work in terms of helping immigrants, in terms of helping nations in the global south that are enduring poverty and sanctions specifically. Yeah. And I think that's something worth mentioning. And I think, sometimes people get caught up in well, Bitcoin is still, capitalist. I agree. It's still capitalist. It's under a capitalist system. It could exist under a non-capitalist system as well. So they're same with MMT. It's like, if you want to redo the whole current system, the Fed, if you want to keep the Fed and try to fix it, that's not going to work. The system can't be fixed. Yeah. So either you take out the whole system and you find a way to do a whole other system, which, I mean, in my opinion, capitalism is destroying this country because it's unfettered, right? It's completely it's gotten to a certain level where we have so much wealth in this country, but it's not proportioned. And so with crypto, we're seeing that people can find ways to gain money. I mean, without Rokfin, without crypto, we wouldn't be able to do the show.
We might not even be here today.
So
we might not even be here.
I mean, it's God sent to some people. Can I be exploited? Of course. I feel like anything can be exploited, but it is very decentralized, and there's a limited amount. So once it's gone, it's gone. And so now I think I think the bad that is there, of course, is there and should be talked about, but the good should also be talked about, and it's tangible and it's immediate and it's more. We're screwed. We have to do something right now while we're in the system. Right? What are you going to do? Just because you call yourself a communist doesn't mean you don't participate in the system. What are you going to do? Die, not eat? You have to participate in the system.
That's the crazy thing.
That's something that we need to think about.
I'm glad you're not as giddy as crypto as I am, but you pointed out all the major points for me right over there. I was just going to read my list. That the things I love about Bitcoin, what I'm saying, in crypto is that, number one, it doesn't deal with the same guards at the gate. It doesn't deal with the Fed. It doesn't deal with our government, whatnot. It doesn't blow up the system, but it goes around it. And that's something important to me, because if I can get the IMF out of my life and I can find a system I can do that, I'm going to get the IMF out of my life, because I know the IMF is really one of the main mechanisms of capitalism, of imperialism, when they go into these other countries. Number two, I can't be sanctioned, or the countries can't be sanctioned with Bitcoin. We've been demonetized for over a year now, almost a year, on YouTube. Julian Assange, he had to go through Bitcoin because they took away every form of American Western banking from him. PayPal, Venmo, bank accounts, you couldn't do that. And that's something I don't have to worry about, that they can just say one day, hey, I don't want to deal with you anymore. I don't want to pay you like YouTube did, which is not a private company. It's connected to the government. But they can do those things. With Bitcoin, they cannot. And number three, they take scarcity into account. And that's an argument I know some of the MMT people say, it doesn't make a difference, whatnot, about the scarcity of our bill, that inflation really doesn't exist, whatnot, because we're the conveyors of our own dollars. But I don't care what you tell me. The more you print something, the more you have of it, the less it will be worth. Now, the argument is that where the money is going to in the bills, and that's something that I need to kind of emphasize as well. It's not the fact that they're just printing a lot of money. They're printing a lot of money and they're giving it to the 1%. The guys down below are getting very, very little.
They're not going to change.
Yeah. And they're not going to change their habits.
Not through this electoral process. You're not just going to, no.
Yeah.
Again, we're not going to get through in that electoral way. So forget changing the whole thing, reforming it.
Yeah. And what we just talked about going through Central America, the dollar is still very present. It's still very dominating, in fact, whatnot. The dollar is worth much more than the actual currencies that all in these other countries. So this is something, the last video I want to put out, because it was another positive thing, is that there are a lot of people that in our Congress are starting to catch on, and they're starting to legitimize cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin especially, you know what I'm saying? Because that's the big one right now. But this is, once again, this is Congressman Torres, again, from the South Bronx, South Bronx, that's a hip-hop song fam, talking about how it's tied to the dollar. And also, once again, showing that all these other people who can't get an American bank account because they want access to dollars, well, now they can obtain that because they can obtain it through crypto. Take a look.
And one of my concerns about crypto is that it would present a challenge to the supremacy of the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. But what I have found striking is that the leading stablecoin issuers have actually chosen to peg their stablecoins to the dollar, which strikes me as a vote of confidence that reinforces rather than challenges the status of the dollar as the world's reserve currency. So what are your thoughts on the relationship between the dollar and the crypto? Is it as contradictory as many have feared, or could it be actually complementary?
I'll answer that. I actually don't think that it's contradictory at all. What people want is a U.S. dollar bank account. Everywhere in the world, people want to be able to have U.S. dollars. And actually, that's the hardest thing to get. And crypto is a tool for a lot of different things, including bringing communities together. But what people want in order for their everyday spending, it's dollars. If you're in Argentina, you want dollars. If you're somebody anywhere in the world, you want to have access to dollars. And that's the hardest thing to get access to right now. And that's why tokenized dollars is so valuable, because you don't need to have a bank account, yet you can have access to the dollar-based system. And a very, very important tool for inclusion.
Bam.
Yeah.
Inclusion. Poor people in other countries, third world countries, can now have access to the dollar via stable coins, through Bitcoin, whatnot. Isn't that a good thing? Isn't that something the progressives should be going, wow, oh my God, poor people can now access
they're too
dollars?
busy making fun of it because they think it comes from a libertarian ideology. And I mean, I guess in some senses it does. I mean, getting rid of the Fed, you know, the libertarians are right there with us when it comes to that. So again, they just put this whole ideology thing before listening to the entire message, right? They have to label somebody. If they don't meet the checklist, what they do is they label somebody and they say, oh, I'm not going to listen to anything you say. That's wrong. That's not how you should operate. You should listen to what people say regardless of their label. And I think, you know, we operate like that because we operate from the truth. We want to get to the truth. We don't operate from my ideology first. If you don't meet the checklist of my ideology, then I'm not listening to you. And with that sort of mentality, you're pushing people away. You're pushing people to the actual far right. You're pushing people away from organizing into an actual, you know, workers' revolt. And I think there could be more conversations, there should be more conversations about the tangible, immediate ways that Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, stable coins actually do help. I don't think, you know, like I said, I always say it's not the solution, but it is a way for people to get something right now at this very moment. And we're seeing that in real time. We're seeing countries that are sanctioned, the people using it. We're seeing developing nations in the third world using it. We're seeing people in America who, like us, are censored by these gigantic corporations like YouTube, who's owned by Google, that because of what we say, actually we're seeing Rokfin be a possibility to help a lot of people. I mean, Jason Burmas got his account taken down on YouTube for the stupidest reason ever. He did absolutely nothing wrong. And
he's been demonetized for 2 years now, fam. Yeah,
demonetized, but we still have a YouTube channel, which is what we use to help get people on the Rokfin. It is a dagger in somebody's money when they're completely, even if they're already demonetized on YouTube, when they're taken down. And it's an absolute travesty what's happening. And like, if it wasn't for Rokfin and the cryptocurrency based type of way, we wouldn't be able to do the show. And that's why it's what I cannot be against that, like, because it's an immediate, tangible thing that I can do. And I cannot be against immigrants and people in third world nations using that to help their families. So for me, those are positives that I think overweight the negatives. And I think, you know, people who have this high and mighty position on Bitcoin need to really understand how it's actually being used by a lot of the working class, especially the ones outside of North America.
Well, that's the thing too now with Nicaragua coming on, you know, to the whole scene with what they're doing and facing some sanctions right now. I think they want to be open to maybe having it for their tourism, because there's a lot of beautiful spots for tourism in Nicaragua that people should take advantage of, because the dollar stretches over there. It really does. And you can go get your big bang for your buck. And it is a safe country, like Camila said. It was very, very safe. As a gringo who speaks very little Spanish, I felt very safe there. And Bitcoin can also help in that situation when it helps with remittances alone. And like you said, fam, it's a practice that is now in play. MMT is a great idea, I think, you know what I'm saying, like that. But how do you get that into play? And if you want to get that into play from by reforming whatnot, you better pay attention to the Convo Couch and elections first, because you can't get anybody in there to help you with your reformation unless you get your elected officials. So start with elections first over here. Come on over and listen to us, and we can listen. I'll be open to listen to anybody, and I won't demean anybody who has an idea to sell me and stuff like that. But you guys have to understand, and this is what people have to understand in America. If your idea is different than somebody else, you don't bully them and browbeat them into accepting your idea. You make a pitch to say why it's better and why it will work better, and then maybe you'll get more people to come along. That's my final thoughts to say on this segment, fam. Anything else?
No, fam, that's it.
Okay.
I think it's time to go.
We do. We have some super rays. Guys, do us a favor real quick. We have 49 thumbs up. We only have one troll in the chat today. I wish we had more. Do me a favor. Hit the like button. Hit the thumbs up button. Hit the share button. Let's get it out there. We also have Karen Gardner. How do you say that last? No, Rivoria.
No, it's Rivoira.
Rivoira. What she said. Thank you for the super ray contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. And Arem's chat didn't come through. Arem. It just says nothing under there, but thank you very much, Arem, because it is always appreciated on the couch, guys. Thank you very much. I want to say thank you to all the people who left those PayPals, all the people who hit our GoFundMe, who made that trip possible, guys. It was an amazing experience. Like we said, it's a lot of hard work. I felt really bad for Jonny Tsunami, who had to try to set up these makeshift studios wherever we're at, and then the internet sometimes is Shangad, which is Italian-American for shit, fam.
I know.
All right, she knows, she's learning. But we're going to continue to do this stuff. We're going to be going back for the inaugurations. We'll meet up with Camila, Wyatt, Ahmed, all these people who did some amazing work. Ben Rubenstein. Hopefully we'll see Ben Norton maybe there. Maybe Max and Anya will be in town. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? We'll try to see as many people as possible. Our good friend Steven, our good friend Gloria. We love you guys so much. Terry Mattson. Code Big. Dr. David. What's up, Dr. D? We love you. Rich Khan. All these cool-ass people that we met out there. Declan. Love you guys. We'll go see you guys soon for Pasta Jardula.
Fiorella.
Johnny Sue hanging out, and Oz with the overalls on the 1s and 2s, fam.
Combo out.
I made lentils. Are you hungry?
Thanks, guys.